Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to use external services with flows. This is a no-code solution to send data to a web service and retrieve the data returned by the web service. On the left, you'll see the architecture set up for the external service provider. You've got a REST API available and an open API definition. On the right is what we are going to build in Salesforce today. We're going to create a named credential, then we'll register an external service with invocable actions, then we'll create a flow making use of invocable actions, and then we'll run the flow where the request will be sent and the response received. First thing we'll do is create a named credential. Under setup, search for named credentials and click on named credentials. Click the named credentials tab and then click new legacy. That'll get you to a new named credentials page where we'll enter bank as a label. It will make the name bank as well. The URL will use the Trailhead Heroku app callout endpoint URL. Now for this specific Trailhead service, no authentication is needed, so we'll leave all the other settings as they are. This part sets up the callout endpoints URL and authentication settings. This allows Salesforce to make the callouts to the remote system. Click Save when you're done. That should create a new named credential called Bank. Next, you'll need to create an external service. Go to Setup, search External Services, and click New External Service. Click from API specification and click Next. Enter bank service as the name. Leave the service schema as relative URL. Select the name credential which you just created and put in the schema URL. In this case, it's accounts schema. Click Save and Next. At this point, you'll see all the operations under that schema, input parameters, output parameters, and descriptions of the operations. Select them all so that they're all available and click Next. On the last page, you'll see the detail of all the operations. We are going to use the add account operation, and you can see its input parameters and output parameters. The output parameters which you're going to use is the 201. This is when the account does not already exist and we create one, and the 409 when the account already exists and we cannot create one. Then you're just going to click Done. You'll see the new service created, you'll see certain limits applicable, and you can click on the service to see its operations. Right, so if I create a new screen flow and I drag an action element onto the canvas, if I filter by type and I click external service, if I click on the search for the actions, I'm going to see the 4 operations that we just registered with the service. Another thing which I've done specifically for this example is I've created a user with first name Maria, last name Thompson. I've also added 2 custom fields, account type and account ID, which are text fields of 25 length. Ignore the values that are on there right now. Right, so let's have a look at the flow we've created to hit the service. First element is the screen. What I've done is I've added 2 text inputs to the screen, one called last name on account and the second one called bank account type. Connected to that, I've got an action which I just showed you earlier. I'm using the add bank account operation, and I'll show you how to set that up. You drag the action on the canvas, you choose filter by type, you choose the external service, you choose add account, then you name the action and you set up the input variables. On the existing one, for the input values, I've put in the text values on the screen that I've just set up, so last name on account and bank account type. Under advanced, I specify the output values, and as I mentioned, 201 means that an account doesn't exist and a 409 means that an account already exists. If it's a 201, I assign it to the apex defined variable account, and if it does exist, I assign it to existing account apex defined variable. I then have a decision element. The first outcome is bank account created, and its condition is existing account is null, meaning that the bank account didn't exist and was created. The default outcome would be if the account already existed. So if the bank account was created, the output variable on the action would be account, meaning that the new account details would sit in this apex defined variable. So what we do is we go and update the user that has the last name that we specified on the text box with the account ID and the bank account type that we entered. So as you can see, it searches for a user with the last name that we entered. It then sets the account ID which we added on the user object to the account object which we returned from the web service call. Then updates the account type to the text which we specified on the screen. If on the other hand the bank account is found and we got a 409, then we set the account ID, which is the apex defined variable, to the ID on existing account, which is also the apex defined variable. As you can see, in both parts of the decision, account ID is set, meaning that the update on the user object results in the same result. So let's debug the flow. Make sure that you show details of what's executed and render the flow in Lightning Runtime. We're going to set the last name of Thompson, as that's the last name of the user we set up, and the bank account type we'll call checking. When we click next, see the outcome of the flow. As you can see on the right, we entered Thompson, bank account type checking, and we click next. Here you can see the result of calling the external service, which was a 409, meaning that the account already existed. In this case, account is null as we didn't get a 201. The Apex defined variable existing account was not null, so the default outcome was executed. That means account Apex defined variable gets set to the ID of the existing account that we returned from the web service. And finally, the update goes and updates the user with the last name of Thompson with an account ID of 100, which the web service returned, and an account type of checking, which we entered on the screen. And that is how, with no code at all, you're going to use external services with a flow. If you liked the video, hit like, subscribe to the channel for updates on my future tutorials.